The Vanguard floated in the void, its once sleek and proud form, now a twisted metal husk that bore the scars of a merciless attack. Captain Ilaret stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the damage. The lights flickered weakly overhead. The hum of the dying systems was a constant reminder of what they had lost. The crew was scattered throughout the ship, trying to salvage what they could or searching for survivors. But no one was prepared for the sight of their ship reduced to nothing more than scrap metal. The destruction had been swift and brutal. The enemy's fleet descended without warning, their weapons tearing through the Vanguard's hull. With ease, the crew had fought back with everything they had, but it was no use. The enemy had superior firepower, and they knew exactly where to strike. In a matter of hours, the once proud starship was no more than a burning wreck. In the cold expanse of space, Ilara's mind raced as she tried to process the enormity of the situation. They had been caught off guard. The attack had come from nowhere, and in the blink of an eye, their ship, their home, had been destroyed. But it wasn't just the loss of the Vanguard that hurt, it was the lives that had been taken in the blink of an eye, the crew members that had been wiped out, the officers who had served with loyalty and dedication, now lost forever. Ilara's breath caught in her throat as she thought of her first officer, Lieutenant Ronan, a man she had trusted with her life, and now he was gone. The feeling of helplessness gripped her chest like a vice. She could almost feel the weight of every lost soul on her shoulders. She shook her head. The grief would come later. For now, they needed to focus on survival. They had to get out of here alive and find a way to turn the tables on their enemies. Ilara clenched her fists and stared out at the wreckage of the Vanguard. A fire ignited in her chest, a burning need for revenge. But it wasn't just vengeance she sought, it was a challenge to prove that humanity would not be so easily defeated, that no matter how many times they were knocked down, they would rise again stronger than ever before. She turned to her crew who had gathered on the bridge, their faces a mix of grief and determination. Ilara's voice was steady, but there was a steel edge to it. "We rebuild," she said, her words carrying a weight that filled the room. "We rebuild, and we make sure that no one dares do this to us again." The crew nodded in silent agreement, each person knowing that this was no longer just about survival. It was about something far greater, about making sure that humanity's place in the stars would not be threatened by anyone, not again. The room was filled with the soft hum of the failing systems, but it felt like a distant sound. As Ilara's mind raced, she could almost see it, the future. They would create a ship unlike any other one that would strike fear into the hearts of their enemies and be a symbol of hope for humanity. It wouldn't be easy, but it had to be done. And with that thought, she made her decision. They would not let this loss define them. They would turn this tragedy into something greater. "We rise from this," she thought with a fire in her soul. "We rise from the ashes." The decision was made in the aftermath of the destruction. Ilara knew there could be no turning back. The Vanguard was gone, and with it, a symbol of humanity's strength. But there was something deeper at play now, something that transcended mere survival. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity would not fall into despair. They would rebuild, not just a ship, but their place among the stars. And this time, they would make sure that no force, alien or otherwise, could ever bring them down again. The first step was gathering the right people, and Ilara wasn't about to trust just anyone with this monumental task. She called on the best minds humanity had to offer, people who had already shown remarkable ingenuity and determination. She reached out to Dr. Hiro Takeda, a scientist renowned for his work in alien technology and human engineering. If anyone could design a ship capable of turning the tide in their favor, it was him. Along with him, a team of military tacticians, engineers, and AI specialists was assembled. These weren't just ordinary individuals. Each one had a stake in the mission, a personal reason to push themselves beyond their limits. Ilara stood in a meeting room, watching as the group came together. There was no hesitation in their eyes. They all knew what was at stake. They were no longer just a crew. They were the last line of defense for humanity. And they weren't going to let the galaxy forget it. Dr. Takeda, his eyes sharp and focused, laid out his ideas. The ship they would design would need to be something the galaxy had never seen before. It would need to outpace and outgun any vessel that came against it. It would need to be as adaptable as it was deadly. But more than anything, It had to symbolize humanity's resilience. This wasn't just about technology. It was about a statement. The Revenant would be a living testament to what humanity could achieve when they refused to be broken. As Takeda spoke, Ilara felt the weight of the decision settle upon her. This wasn't just about rebuilding the ship. It was about rebuilding hope. She thought of the crew members lost in the attack, the lives they had sacrificed, and the message they had left behind. If they were going to honor that sacrifice, they had to create something extraordinary. The blueprint began to take shape. The Revenant would be designed with a level of sophistication humanity had never even dreamed of before. The ship would integrate cutting-edge human technology with stolen alien advancements, creating a hybrid that would surpass any other vessel in the galaxy. Its weapons systems would be designed for maximum impact, capable of overwhelming the largest fleets. Its shields would be reinforced by alien energy patterns, creating an impenetrable defense. And its AI would be far more than a simple program. It would be an intelligent, adaptive system that could learn and grow stronger with each encounter. As the team worked, Ilara could feel the momentum building. The vision for the Revenant was coming to life, but it wasn't just a machine they were building. It was a statement, a promise to the universe that humanity would never cower, never surrender. They would rise from this, and they would rise stronger. The construction would be difficult, and the stakes higher than ever. But for the first time since the attack, Ilara felt a sense of purpose that burned brighter than any fear. They were on the verge of something monumental. They weren't just creating a ship. They were creating the future. The blueprint for the Revenant was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was more than just a set of specifications. It was a vision, a commitment to humanity's future. Dr. Takeda and his team worked relentlessly, day and night, refining their design. Every detail, every system was considered, no corner left unchecked. The enemy that had destroyed the Vanguard was out there, lurking in the dark, and the crew knew that they would need something far beyond the ordinary to stand a chance. Ilara watched as the plans for the Revenant grew on the digital displays before her. The ship would be constructed in secret, away from prying eyes, hidden in the vastness of space, deep within the lunar shipyards. It was there, on Earth's moon, that humanity would begin the work of crafting a weapon that could alter the course of the war. But it wasn't just about creating a ship that could fight. The Revenant needed to be something more. Ilara wanted it to be a symbol, a beacon of hope for all those who had suffered at the hands of their enemies. It had to embody everything humanity stood for: resilience, creativity, and an unwavering will to survive. Dr. Takeda's team worked tirelessly to incorporate both human ingenuity and the alien technologies they had gathered from previous encounters. The ship would be faster than any other, capable of outrunning even the most advanced enemy ships. But speed alone wasn't enough. The Revenant needed to be able to strike with precision, unleashing devastating firepower when needed. Its weapons were designed to adapt to different situations, using modular components that could be reconfigured on the fly. Whether it was lasers, energy pulses, or missile systems, the Revenant would be ready for any scenario. Its shields were perhaps the most innovative feature. Using a combination of human technology and alien energy sources, the Revenant's shields were capable of absorbing and redirecting enemy fire. Unlike conventional shields that simply deflected damage, the Revenant's shield system had the ability to adapt and grow stronger with each incoming attack, learning from every battle to become nearly impenetrable. And then there was the ship's eye. It was more than just an interface. It was a partner, a living intelligence that would evolve alongside its crew. It was designed to anticipate movements, predict enemy tactics, and adapt to the flow of battle. The AI was built to learn from every fight, making the Revenant a true extension of its crew's will. It wasn't just a machine that followed orders. It was a strategist, a fighter, a mind that could make decisions in the heat of the moment. As the design was finalized, Ilara felt a growing sense of anticipation. Every aspect of the Revenant was coming together, and the crew was eager to see it come to life. But even as excitement filled the air, There was an underlying sense of dread. They all knew the stakes were higher than ever. If this ship was going to be humanity's salvation, they would have to give everything they had to see it through. The countdown to construction began, and the atmosphere on Earth's moon grew electric. The massive shipyards began to hum with activity as hundreds of workers, engineers, and military specialists assembled the parts that would form the Revenant. It was the largest construction project humanity had ever undertaken, and the pressure was immense. But there was no turning back. With each passing day, the Revenant drew closer to reality. Ilara stood in the observation room, staring at the blueprints one final time. This ship would be their answer. It would be the force that would change everything. The massive construction yards on Earth's moon were a hive of activity, buzzing with the energy of thousands of workers, engineers, and specialists. The Revenant was no longer just a set of blueprints and ideas. It was taking form, piece by piece. The vastness of the project was overwhelming, but Ilara couldn't afford to focus on the scale. She had a mission, and every decision she made now would determine humanity's future. Each day, she visited the construction site, watching as the skeletal frame of the Revenant grew higher and higher into the void. Massive cranes and machines worked tirelessly, hauling massive sections of the ship into place. The shipyards were built into the craters of the moon's surface, and in the vastness of space, it was hard to imagine anything could dwarf the enormity of this project. But every new piece of the Revenant that was placed brought them closer to their goal. The ship's hull was built from a composite of both human alloys and alien metals they had scavenged from the wreckage of the Vanguard and other failed encounters. The result was a material that was stronger, more flexible, and far more resistant to damage than anything humanity had previously known. The alloy was layered and reinforced, allowing the Revenant to absorb impacts from even the most powerful weapons without buckling under the pressure. Inside the massive facility, engineers were working on the ship's engine systems. The Revenant's propulsion would be unlike any other. Using a hybrid system that combined conventional human thrusters with alien anti-gravity technologies, it could reach unprecedented speeds, outrunning anything in pursuit. The ship would have the ability to make sharp turns, accelerate to unbelievable speeds, and escape dangerous situations with ease. It was a ship designed for agility and maneuverability, traits that would be crucial when facing the kind of enemies humanity had encountered. Meanwhile, in a smaller section of the shipyards, the weapons team was finalizing the ship's armament. The Revenant would have an arsenal unlike any seen before. Energy cannons, pulse missiles, and electromagnetic railguns. Each weapon was custom-built to handle any opponent. But what made the Revenant's weapon systems truly unique was the ability to adapt. Each weapon could be reconfigured, customized for different scenarios, and could evolve based on the AI's analysis of the enemy forces. No matter what the alien fleets threw at them, the Revenant would always be prepared. As construction progressed, so too did the ship's internal systems. The heart of the Revenant was its eye, which was growing smarter with every passing day. The system was designed not only to control the ship's functions, but also to assist the crew with tactical decisions, providing real-time analysis and recommendations. It could learn from past battles, adapting to enemy strategies and improving the Revenant's chances of success with every encounter. Ilara couldn't help but feel a growing sense of pride as she watched the ship take shape. It wasn't just a machine. It was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a testament to what they could achieve when they were pushed to the edge. The Revenant was no longer just a project. It was their salvation. And as the final pieces began to fall into place, Ilara knew they were one step closer to taking the fight back to the enemy. The Revenant was no longer a dream. It was about to become a reality. The day the Revenant was ready for its first test was one Ilara would never forget. The ship had come together over the course of months, piece by piece, and now it stood fully assembled, its sleek form gleaming in the light of Earth's moon. She stood at the observation window, her eyes fixed on the ship below. It was more than just metal and machinery. It was humanity's defiance, their will to survive. The engineers, scientists, and military officers were all gathered in the command center, monitoring every system, making sure everything was in place. Dr. Takeda stood beside her, his usual calm demeanor replaced by an almost palpable excitement. He had poured everything he had into the Revenant, and now he was ready to see if his work would live up to its potential. Ilara turned to face the crew. "This is it," she said, her voice steady. "We've put everything we have into this ship, and now it's time to see what it can do. Stay sharp. This is only a test, but we'll give it everything we've got." The crew nodded in agreement, their faces serious but filled with determination. They had all sacrificed so much to get to this point, and now it was time to prove that it had been worth it. The first test would be simple, a series of flight maneuvers designed to test the ship's speed, agility, and responsiveness. The Revenant's engines roared to life, sending the ship hurtling into space with a grace that defied its massive size. Ilara could feel the rumble in her chest as the ship shot forward, the ship's eye automatically adjusting to her commands, anticipating every turn, every acceleration. The ship moved with a fluidity Ilara had never experienced before. It was as though it were alive, a creature of the stars. With every maneuver, the Revenant exceeded expectations. It turned on a dime, darting through space with precision that left Ilara awestruck. The hybrid propulsion system was working perfectly, allowing the ship to reach speeds they had once only dreamed of. And even in the tightest turns, the Revenant remained steady, its design allowing it to push the limits of what a starship should be capable of. The crew watched as the ship completed each test with flawless execution. The AI, which had been integrated with the ship's systems, was making adjustments in real time, optimizing every move, every strategy. It wasn't just a ship, it was a partner, a tool that worked with its crew to achieve the impossible. Once the flight tests were completed, it was time for the weapon systems to be tested. The Revenant's weapons were designed to adapt to various combat scenarios, and Ilara wanted to see how they would perform in a controlled simulation. The ship's railguns, pulse cannons, and energy-based weapons were fired at virtual targets, each one more complex than the last. The AI guided each weapon with deadly precision, adjusting trajectories in real time based on the simulated movements of the targets. The results were stunning. The Revenant's weapon systems operated flawlessly, hitting every target with an accuracy that could only be described as perfection. The AI was more than just a tool. It was becoming an essential part of the ship, almost like a sixth crew member, helping to make split-second decisions during the combat simulations. As the tests came to an end, Ilara's heart raced. The Revenant had performed beyond her expectations. It was everything they had hoped for and more. The ship was a masterpiece, a weapon, and a symbol all in one. She turned to her crew, her face a mixture of pride and excitement. "It's ready," she said simply. "Now, we prepare for war." The Revenant was no longer just an idea. It was a force that would change the course of the galaxy, and Ilara knew that this was just the beginning. With the Revenant now fully operational, Ilara knew they were at a crossroads. The ship was a triumph, a feat of engineering that exceeded all expectations, but it wasn't enough to simply have the most advanced vessel in the galaxy. They had to use it, and use it well. The enemy that had destroyed the Vanguard was still out there, and it wouldn't be long before they struck again. Ilara convened a meeting with her senior officers and tactical team. The room was filled with the soft hum of the ship's AI systems, which were now an integral part of the command center. The crew gathered around the holographic table, their faces serious as Ilara laid out the mission ahead. "We have a window of opportunity," Ilara began, her voice steady. "But it's not going to be open for long. The enemy may not know we've finished the Revenant, but they're already regrouping. We need to strike first, catch them off guard, and cripple their ability to attack." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed her words. This wasn't just a mission. It was a chance to shift the balance of power in the galaxy. The Revenant wasn't just humanity's last hope. It was their weapon for reclaiming control. Commander Lyon, the ship's tactical officer, spoke up. Our best bet is to hit their supply lines. If we can take out their fuel depots and resource ships, we'll slow down their ability to mount a full-scale offensive. Ilara nodded. Agreed, but we'll need to move fast. Their fleet is scattered, and we'll only have one shot at this. Once we make our move, we won't have time to retreat or regroup. The ship's eye, which had been silently processing the strategy, interjected with a series of tactical simulations. The holographic map flickered, showing enemy positions, routes, and potential vulnerabilities. The A's analysis was precise, offering several options for attack strategies. We'll have to be swift and decisive, Ilara said. Commander Lyon, I want your team to prepare for a series of lightning strikes. We'll hit them hard, then disappear into the shadows before they can react. The Revenant's speed and versatility will give us the upper hand. The officers nodded in agreement, the weight of the mission settling in. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the future of humanity. And this was their chance to prove that the galaxy would no longer treat them as insignificant. In the days that followed, the Revenant prepared for its first true test in combat. The crew trained relentlessly, running simulations, rehearsing every move, refining every detail. The ship's AI, now fully integrated into their operations, assisted in every step, from navigation to targeting. It wasn't just a tool, it was becoming a trusted ally, anticipating the crew's needs, providing solutions, and offering guidance. Ilara spent most of her time in the command center, watching as the final preparations were made. The tension in the air was palpable, but it was tempered by a sense of resolve. The crew knew what was at stake, and they knew that the Revenant wasn't just a ship, it was their chance to turn the tide. As they neared their target, Ilara felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. This was it, the moment they had all been working toward. They were about to strike back. The Revenant powered up its engines, and the crew braced for the mission ahead. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but they would soon find out. The Revenant moved silently through the vastness of space, its sleek form blending into the stars. Ilara stood at the helm, her hand steady on the controls as the ship glided toward its target. The crew was tense, every member knowing that this mission could change everything. The enemy's supply lines were within reach, and the Revenant had the speed and firepower to strike before the enemy could even react. Commander Lyon was stationed beside her, eyes fixed on the tactical displays. "We're almost there, Captain," he said, his voice calm but laced with anticipation. Ilara nodded. "Stay sharp. We hit fast, hit hard, and then we vanish into the darkness. No delays." The Revenant's AI, which had already mapped out the enemy's movements, chimed in with a series of calculations. Approaching target coordinates. Enemy vessels detected. 4 supply ships, 1 fuel depot. Ilara's gaze flicked to the holographic display. The enemy's fleet was just as the AI had predicted. 4 lightly defended supply ships, all clustered around the fuel depot, with no immediate backup in sight. The timing was perfect. The Revenant could strike and be gone before the enemy knew what hit them. "Prepare weapons," Ilara commanded. "Activate shields." This needs to be precise. As the crew made the final preparations, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that this was their chance to send a message that humanity was no longer a race to be overlooked. They were coming for the enemy, and they would stop at nothing to reclaim their place in the stars. The Revenant dropped out of warp speed, its engines powering down to silence as it entered the area near the enemy supply line. The moon of a nearby planet hung in the distance, providing cover as they prepared for the attack. Lyon's voice came through, tight with focus. "Enemy ships haven't noticed us yet. We have the element of surprise." Ilara gripped the armrest of her chair, her thoughts clear. "Let's make this count. Target the lead supply ship. Once that's disabled, focus on the depot." The crew moved into action. The AI locked onto the enemy ships, calculating trajectories and adjusting for any potential evasive maneuvers. Ilara gave a quick nod. Fire. The Revenant's railguns roared to life, sending devastating blasts of energy toward the lead supply ship. The enemy vessel never stood a chance. The rams tore through its hull, sending it into a violent spin as explosions ripped through its engines. The ship shuddered, its lights flickering before going dark. Target disabled, the AI reported. Without missing a beat, Ilara gave the order. Next target, the depot. Lock on with the pulse missiles. The Revenant's weapon systems whirred as the missiles were deployed, slicing through the vacuum of space toward their target. The fuel depot exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves through the nearby ships and debris scattering into space. The surrounding supply vessels were thrown off course by the explosion, but the Revenant was already moving, darting away from the chaos, its speed unmatched. Mission complete, the AI reported, its tone efficient. Enemy response time is estimated to be 30 minutes. I suggest immediate retreat. Ilara watched as the debris from the destroyed depot drifted in space, a testament to the Revenant's power. We're not finished yet, she said, her voice low but fierce. Get us to the next supply line. The crew worked quickly, not allowing the small victory to cloud their focus. They were on a mission, and there was no time to rest. The Revenant had proven its worth, but the war was far from over. They had sent a message, but it was only the beginning. As the ship sped off into the void, Ilara couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was humanity's moment. They had taken the first step in reclaiming their future, and they wouldn't stop until they had won. The Revenant sailed through the vast expanse of space, the blackness stretching out endlessly before them. The mission had been a success. Several supply lines had been severed, the enemy's fuel depot destroyed, and their morale dealt a blow. But Ilara knew better than to celebrate just yet. The war was still raging, and their enemies wouldn't stop just because they had lost a few ships. They were far from finished. Ilara sat in the command center, staring out the large viewport as the stars streaked by in the blink of an eye. The crew was tired, but there was no time to rest. The Revenant had proven itself in battle, but it needed more than just one victory to turn the tide of the war. The enemy would regroup, and they would be ready. The key now was to capitalize on their success and keep the pressure on. Commander Lyon stood beside her, his expression tense. We've crippled their supply lines, but we know they'll reinforce quickly. We can't afford to waste this advantage. Ilara nodded. We need to hit them hard and fast again. We've shown them that we're capable of disrupting their operations. Let's keep them on the defensive. The AI interjected, its voice calm and analytical. I have identified several additional targets. Striking them would further destabilize enemy operations. I recommend targeting communication hubs, weapons depots, and strategic outposts. Ilara's mind raced. The AI's analysis was spot on. They had to cripple the enemy's ability to communicate and resupply. If they could disrupt the flow of information and reinforcements, the enemy would be left scrambling. Target the communication hubs first, Ilara decided. Take out their ability to coordinate a counteroffensive. We'll move quickly and strike hard, then retreat before they can regroup. The crew worked in perfect synchrony, the tension palpable as they readied the ship for another strike. The Revenant's engines powered up, its sleek frame cutting through space with ease as they moved toward their next target. Ilara stood at the helm, her heart pounding with anticipation. As they approached the first communication hub, the AI tracked enemy movement, pinpointing patrols and defensive measures. The hub was located on a remote asteroid, heavily guarded but not well defended in terms of firepower. Ilara's mind sharpened. The timing had to be flawless. Engage, she commanded, her voice steady, but filled with resolve. The Revenant swooped in, its shields flaring up as it absorbed the first few shots from the enemy's defenses. In an instant, the ship returned fire, its weapon systems flashing with deadly accuracy. The asteroid's surface cracked and exploded as railgun shots and pulse lasers tore into the communication hub's infrastructure. The enemy scrambled to respond, but the Revenant was already gone, darting into the void, its speed leaving no room for retaliation. Target neutralized, the AI reported. Enemy forces are now unable to communicate. Ilara allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction, but there was no time to dwell. Prepare for the next strike. We've given them a headache. Now let's finish what we started. The crew set course for the next target, a weapons depot on a nearby moon. It was a heavily fortified position, but the Revenant's weapons systems and the element of surprise gave them the upper hand. The ship moved swiftly, disabling the weapons depot with precision strikes, rendering it useless before the enemy could launch a counterattack. With each successful mission, the crew's confidence grew. They had found their rhythm, striking swiftly, adapting to the enemy's tactics, and disappearing before they could be targeted. The Revenant was living up to its promise, an unstoppable force, a symbol of humanity's resistance. As they returned to the shadows of deep space, Ilara stood at the window once more. The war was far from over, but humanity was no longer a race to be trampled on. The Revenant had shown them that they had the power to fight back, and they weren't going to stop until they had won. The galaxy would remember this moment. Humanity had found its voice, and it was louder than ever.